What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Tuya Hive. Obviously, the hive comes from this honeycomb pattern that you see milled into the titanium, and this one it kind of caught my eye when. So I think the most famous knife for Tuya is actually the Envy series. They've got an Envy 1, 2, and 3. I have the Envy 2. And I think it's a really good value knife for what you get. You get really good action. You have M390 blade. You have a nice design. The fit and finish of the blade is okay, but I think for the price that you pay for it, I think it's a really decent value. And while I was browsing their product offerings, I came across this one, and this one it's called the Hive. It's a little bit of a larger size than the Envy. So let me show you what we got, and then we can get started on the review. What you have here is kind of a it's kind of a tanto blade, but this portion, it has curvature to it, so it has a slight belly, and then it turns into a tanto. That I think it's actually fairly attractive. So let me kind of show you what we have here. You got this fuller that's running the full length of the blade. Maker's Mark, M390. Let me see if I can show you what that looks like right there. M390. We have a milled titanium pocket clip. It's a titanium frame lock. You do have a lock bar insert that also serves as an over travel stop. And what we have is this honeycomb milling pattern, but it's a little bit strange because these holes, the ones that you see filled with the carbon fiber is actually not inlaid into the titanium. What it is that the hole pokes all the way through the titanium, and there's a carbon fiber plate. Hopefully it'll come across here. I don't know if you can see the inside of that. So there's a plate of carbon fiber that runs from here to here all the way in the back. It's like this piece that is big, and then you can see it through the holes in the titanium. So it's an interesting design. It did catch my eye. And with Tuya, these are like $220 or thereabouts. Most of Tuya knives are. So I don't think I think they're good value for what you get. You know, it's titanium M390. You have, I think the action is really nice. It runs in phosphor bronze washers, but it's so smooth. It feels like it's running on bearings. It's really smooth. But this one's not a small knife. Let me give you some size comparisons here. Here it is against the Para 2 and against the Para 3. So it's larger than the Para 2. So it's, like I said, this is a full-size knife. It's not a small knife. The NV2 is a much smaller knife. It's more in the range of the size of the bug out. But this one, as you can see, it's significantly larger than all of these size comparisons. Well, not significantly larger than the Para 2, but it is larger. As far as blade, you're looking at just shy of 3.5 inches. So, like I said, a full-size knife. So let's kind of dive into the review here. The ergonomics on this knife are really very good. You have a fairly generous handle. You have a finger groove for your finger up here, a flat, and then this kind of flat area where you can land your pinky back here. And I wear large gloves, and this one still leaves me with, call it a 1/2 inch here in the back. You can't choke up because this is just a sharpening choil. This is not a finger choil. But the saber grip right here, where I think I hold most knives, or a hammer grip, it is very comfortable. You have the pocket clip. It lands in the hollow of your hand, so you know it's there, but it's not pokey. It doesn't, it's not, even though this point is a sharp point, it it's located such that it falls like in the deepest hollow of my hand, so I don't feel that point of that pocket clip. The ergonomics are really quite good on this one. You have chamfering everywhere you would want to have chamfered, and even though there's no contouring, across the face of the handles, across the face of the scales, then you still, because of this chamfering, it's still really comfortable to hold in the hand. The ergonomics are actually quite good. Now, action. Oh my God, the action on the Tuya knives are so good. You have these knives that are less expensive than most, or than a lot of titanium frame locks with M390 blades. They're and the action, like this is a little bit cheaper than let's say a ZTO 562. Now this is Chinese made versus the USA made 0562. So there's a reason this one's cheaper, but the action on this one is just incredibly smooth. On deployment, it's really nice. It fires reliably. I can't fail it. It doesn't feel like it's anywhere close to failing. But because it's a heavy blade, it's a thick stock blade. Let me see if I can show you. So there, comparing those two, it's a much thicker blade, and because it's a 3.5-inch blade, and it carries this full thickness fuller all the way, or damn 95% of the length of the blade, to a very robust tip. This is not a piercing knife. Look at that. It's a very robust tip. Because of that, the blade is heavier, so it's weird because it deploys very reliably, but you can feel that it is a heavy blade. But at the same time, that helps it just drop shut completely. It is just so smooth when it drops. I think the action is phenomenal. It runs on phosphor bronze washers, and whatever they're doing, I don't know if they're polishing their washers. I don't think I've taken this one apart. I don't think I've taken the Tuya Envy apart either. But whatever they're doing, it makes for an incredibly smooth knife with tremendous action. Even though it's not on bearings, you usually expect this kind of action from bearings or multi-row bearings or something like that. But the fact that it can do this with phosphor bronze washers, it's just the action is so very good. So cutting with this, cutting is decent, but not the greatest. Again, you got very thick blade stock, and so you can't. So it's not as slicey. It's more of a wedge. Now, utility cuts, draw cuts for package opening, because of the tanto tip, you have it's fairly utilitarian for that. It's not a great piercer just because the tip is so damn thick. Look, I mean, if I show you, now the Parrot 2 it's a very stabby blade, but even if I show you against kind of a, look, this is a fixed blade right here, and whoa, there. Even with a fixed blade that has a significantly thicker blade stock, you can see the tips. The tip is very robust. You can absolutely pry with this. I wouldn't worry about it one bit. But knives are not pry bars, and as far as cutting, I would call it adequate is probably the best I can say about the cutting performance. It came really sharp. It is actually fairly sharp, but it doesn't come down to a very thin edge. It's not that tall of a blade. It's not shallow, but it's not that tall. The kind of saber grind carries to right here, and the thickness of the blade just doesn't allow it to get all that thin behind the edge. So Then we get to fit and finish. And fit and finish is, well, let me give you my thoughts. It's kind of all over the place. I think the fit and finish on the blade on this one is much better than the Tuya. Okay, they're both Tuyas. Than the NV2. And in the NV, the transition areas between the grind on the primary grind and the flat or the tip, because the NV2 is that compound grind. It seems like they over buffed them. Okay, they feel rounded all over the place. Here they're much crisper. You can see a much crisper line in transition between the flat face and the primary bevel, and between the tip bevel and the primary grind. It's much better on the blade. The fit and finish is really nice. I still like that they carried the design of the Tuya mark in this triangular corner that they do in the scale. I think the fact that design aesthetic matches. I think I think it's a tiny little detail, but I just love that kind of tiny little detail. Then I think the Hive is actually fairly attractive, with one caveat. I think the only problem with this type of milling and pattern is that any amount of gunk, it just all of these corners of all of these things are just magnets to collecting dirt and grime and gunk in every one of those corners. So you need to kind of take a toothpick and dig the gunk out of your knife, just because over time it will collect in every single one of these corners. It's probably a nitpick on my part, and I don't know if it speaks to the fit and finish, but it's definitely a thing. Now I would probably have preferred that these were inlays as opposed to holes with a carbon fiber backer plate. And the reason for that is that in order to do that, the carbon fiber is not screwed into the titanium. It's kind of glued on there, and I just don't feel that that's the best way to build a knife. With the carbon fiber kind of epoxied to the back. I'm sure it's probably fine. I'm sure it's probably a very strong epoxy, but you're gonna be touching that carbon fiber, because that's kind of where your fingers land. Your finger lands on all these carbon fibers, and you're squeezing it all the time. Now, can that epoxy hold over time? Maybe, I don't know, but I just don't think it's the best way of doing it. I think obviously it takes a lot more precision to do an inlay on these holes, but I think they probably should have gone that way anyways. I really like you have a captive pivot that is this hexagonal shape that follows the pattern, and I think they did a really good job on doing the captive pivot like this way. And then on this side, they kind of did the pivot color that way to kind of match the aesthetic. I think that's really nicely done. And then you've got black hardware, and I think that's also it kind of goes with the carbon fiber holes here. I think that looks really attractive. The pocket clip works really well. I like when they do milled pocket clips, and then they have like these only two thinner, because it gives you this really nice spring. It's not as stiff. Now I don't like the cutout here for the lock bar. I like it when they do exactly this, but reverse, where these grooves are on the inside. And the reason for that is because getting it in and out of your pocket, it just destroys your pocket as going in and out. And I just think that should be on the inside, or they should round these off, or they should do something else. But this destroys your pocket. It actually rides fairly low in the pocket, because it's not a deep carry pocket clip, but you only have a little bit of the tail end of the knife. Now this knife, it's pretty good. You have they decided to it almost looks like another screw here, but what you have is they've incorporated a lanyard hole, but in a place where they just said, hey, we can fit one here. It doesn't change the design. Let's do that. So they've added a lanyard hole here in the back. Really, really well done. So airing of grievances, like I said, I think that the fact that it's a carbon fiber plate in the back as opposed to inlays, I think that's probably not the way I would have liked them to do it. I think I probably would have wanted a black back spacer, you know, just to continue the alternating pattern here. And you know, it's fairly thick blade stock. It's far more robust. I don't know that the Tuya knives are known for hard use kind of knife, so maybe they could have gone with a little bit of a thinner stock on this one. But it feels really, really robust, and I can't and I can't complain too much. I think that the action on this thing is phenomenal. I think, you know, it's better than my zero tolerance 05662, and that has bearing action that is quite good. It's just this thing, when you have, you know, the phosphor bronze action, you know, that you get from like a Sebenza or a Medford, okay, this feels like that is what a Medford or a Sebenza feels after 3 years of breaking in. Okay, that's kind of what it feels like. It feels very, very smooth, absolutely zero blade play anywhere, but it's, you know, it's drop shut with zero blade plate, and it's just glassy smooth. I don't know, I'm not sure who makes these. I'm not sure who is the OEM for these, but whatever they're doing with those washers and the action in here, they need to keep doing it. It's just phenomenal action. I'm not sure if you can still get this knife. I believe you can, but if you find one in the secondary market, I would say, if you like the aesthetic, if you like this tanto, and I think that's an attractive tanto, by the way, I think it's worthwhile. I don't think, if you like the aesthetic of this, I think as a knife you'll enjoy using it and carrying it. Guys, hopefully this was helpful for you. If I earned it, then like and subscribe. Don't get notified. Nobody likes to get more emails. You know where to find my content if you want to see my videos. And until I see you at the next one, take care.